Why do you not believe? You don't believe that it's possible to have perfect peace. Why not?
Yeah. I feel like the word perfect is hard for anyone to achieve with anything because it sounds to me like there's never any room for error or a challenge. So I think challenge is part of life, and it's, vulnerability is part of being human. So it's hard for me to imagine anyone being perfect at anything. Yeah.
Well, vulnerability is a weakness.
Oh,
right?
interesting. I think it's a strength.
To be vulnerable?
Well, there's different,
For women, is it normal for women to be vulnerable, right?
I think there's a type of vulnerability where it's allowing yourself to be fully seen by someone.
Right.
That's beautiful. That's part of intimacy. I think it can be part of sexuality and relationships. Vulnerable as in you're in danger, that is not good,
Right.
of course. Like that is
Physical danger.
right.
Okay.
Or
That's
emotional
different.
danger. Yeah, that's abuse, right? Like
Right.
I don't want people to be in danger. But I do think that there's something about that, you're exposing a part of yourself to be, whether it's physical, you're being sexual with someone, there's vulnerability inherent in sex for everyone.
Should a man be vulnerable?
Yes, it's very sexy.
A man to be vulnerable?
If it's the kind we were talking about where you're sharing a deep part of yourself, yeah, I think
Really?
it's beautiful. Yeah, if you share your feelings, if you allow yourself to cry, I think it's really healthy to express our emotions.
I mean, it's normal, abnormal for a woman. You say you're married, right?
I am.
You're married. Is your husband vulnerable?
Well, he does express emotions to me, and that means a lot to me.
Really?
Yeah,
And
I think it's beautiful.
So why does that mean so much to you to see his weakness like that?
I don't see it as a weakness. So to me,
Oh,
it's more like he's trusting me enough to be fully himself, to talk about his fears or things that stressed him out. It makes me feel closer to him. The same thing in friendships or with my sisters or my brother. Like I like that closeness that we can have when we are really honest with who we are, and I want to be able to support him and my other friends too.
How are you able to, how the order is for women to follow men, to look up to men and see the right way to go, right?
It is. I'm aware of that belief.
Right. And so
Yeah.
how are you able to look up to your husband when he's been vulnerable with you?
I think we look up to each other in different ways. I don't really see it as like a hierarchy where he's up here and I'm down here. I think of it more as like we're on equal plane.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I'm much happier. I have had a relationship in the past
Right.
that felt much more that way, and neither of us were happy with it.
Okay.
So for me, and I can only speak for myself because I know some people much prefer that, I like feeling like we're partners, not that we're like, he is the leader, I'm the follower. Like I have certain strengths that he leans on and he has strengths that I lean on, and that makes a happy relationship.
Do you obey him?
I don't think that I need to because he doesn't like instruct me. Like he doesn't command me. It's more like he will request things, and I will request things too. But when I hear the word obey, I really think like someone's like being very firm and directing me and pushing me around.
Right.
He would never do that.
And so do you obey him?
I'm going to say no.
You don't obey him?
No, there's no need though.
Really?
Yeah, I don't even think I have opportunities for that. Yeah.
So you don't even have an opportunity to obey him?
No, I mean, if like we're watching a show and he's like, would you mind getting me a glass of water? I'm happy to get him a glass of water. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's obeying. Now, if he was like, get me a glass of water,
right,
I would stay sitting down and say, what's wrong? Are you okay? Can we talk about this?
Amazing. Why is it that obey seems like such a negative, bad word to most women? When I ask, do you obey your husband, they always see it as a bad thing. Why is that?
Yeah. Well, the way that I think many of us understand it is that we are being commanded. Like there's this incredible amount of expectation. Now, there could be other definitions of obey. I don't know. Like if obey means like a polite request, that's different. So, but the women I know, like none of them want to be like ordered around.
I know.
So
That's a problem, though.
well, although some do, if they're in a relationship where there's like dominant and submissive,
Right.
like, and that can be either person can
But
be
that's
the
not a
dominant
normal
one.
relationship.
Well,
When
it's
it's
considered
dominant and submissive.
right. It's
That's
considered more.
That's not normal.
Well, I would say it's normal for people who are into it. It's considered not like traditional. It's considered a little. It's not what people grow up learning what a relationship is, but some people find a lot of healing through it or just fun.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Have you noticed that sex is like a drug to men? And then to a woman, she's like the drug dealer because she knows that the man loves the sex, so she uses sex to control him. And because he become addicted to sex, he keep coming back for the sex. So to a man, sex is like a drug, and women are sex dealers,
Ooh.
like a drug addict, a drug dealer. Have
Yeah.
you noticed that?
I have heard of that dynamic. I think that it can happen
Yeah.
for sure. I think when that happens, it comes from a pretty unhealthy place where they didn't learn anything about healthy relationships. They didn't learn about healthy sexuality or like how to communicate about sex or their desires. I don't think it's a healthy way to go about it.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you think about women who use sex to control men, whether they're married or not? What do you think about women who use sex to control men?
As a side note, I have interviewed people where it was the opposite, where a man has used it to control the woman in a marriage. So it can go either way when that happens. I think it can come from a number of things. One would be, there are people who are very narcissistic or sociopathic. And again, that could be any gender of a person.
But
and
what do you think about women who use sex to control men?
I'd have to look at it case by case. I think that there are occasions where that happens as a result of the woman being controlled in other ways. Like she feels like she has no other option or tool, like it's because of the way sex has been treated in her world. So for example, I interviewed this woman who grew up in Russia, and she was taught, like, if you want to have safety, if you want to have a healthy, happy family life, you're going to have to woo and, lure in a man with your sexuality. She was taught that from when she was a little girl. Your family won't be safe if you don't do it. So I think it can come from that kind of a thing.
But what do you think about, because most, if not all, most women use sex to control men. What do you think about women who use sex to control men?
I don't think most do.
You do not?
No.
Why? Why do you think they don't?
Well, I talk to hundreds of women each year, and many men and folks of all genders each year, and I have for like a decade.
Right.
And so occasionally I'll hear about something like that. But for the most part, I hear that folks want to have a healthy sexual relationship. They want to feel respected. They want to have pleasure. Whatever their desires are, they want them to be fulfilled. So I just don't hear about that. I think that when that happens, it's a sad situation, but I think it comes from much deeper issues.
Should a man ever tell a woman his problems?
Yeah.
Show a weakness to a woman? Should he ever tell a woman his problems?
Sure.
And why?
Think so. Yeah.
Why?
I think so, because I think that if you care about someone, you want to be supportive of them. So I want to be able to be helpful. If a man comes to me, if it's a friend, if it's my brother, if it's my husband, if it's my dad, I would much rather know what they're dealing with so I can be supportive than have them like hide it from me.
But women can't even solve their own problems. That's why they look to men to help them overcome their hell.
You think so?
How can a woman help? Because she judges him. You know how when a man does tell a woman his problem, whether it's his wife or his mother or anyone, she judges him and she never forget it.
Ooh, that
50 years go by.
Oh That's
Have you
sad to
noticed
me,
that?
Jesse. I haven't noticed that.
You have not noticed that?
No.
Really?
No, that makes me sad. I mean, everybody meets someone who like holds a grudge. Everybody, like, but in my close circles and the people I talk to, I've not talked to any. Okay, so there's one example of like when sometimes women feel overburdened because men don't feel like they can talk to other men about their problems either. They've been taught that that's a weakness. So then they just dump all their problems on the woman in their life.
I've seen that, yes.
Yeah, and I think that's not really fair to either of them. Like, I think that, again, men, if they learn that being vulnerable to show your true self and to have challenges, if that makes you weak, and then they rely heavily on one woman, but that woman is being relied on by her husband, by her brother, by her dad, that's a lot to carry. So I don't think that's a great situation.
Were women created to lead or to follow?
I think both, and I think it depends. Like, I think we all have different strengths. So I think we should lead in certain scenarios. And I think also some women are just born more to, like, their personality is much more, they want to be a leader. And I think it's helpful for all of us to lead sometimes and to follow sometimes.
But were they created by God, women? Were they created by God to
Yeah.
lead or to follow? I know that they try to
Yeah.
lead, right?
Yeah.
And they want to be in that way, but were they created by God to lead or to follow?
I believe that they were created to do both. I really do.
Why do you believe that?
I really do. So, like, for an example, let's say there's a very, like, traditional relationship where the man is more of the dominant leader in the household and the woman, maybe she stays home and cooks and takes care of kids, for example. That woman is still leading, and she probably is in charge of the groceries that come into the house. She probably has to run the household like a business. It's a lot of work. So I just don't think that any woman, whether she is staying at home with kids or whether she is, not in a relationship with a man or whether she's working in an office, I just don't think that we're designed just to do one or the other. Now, there are certainly these like ideas around masculinity and femininity and stuff, and people feel different like connections to that.
Right.
I think it's really personal. It's up to us what we want.
But a married woman is under the umbrella of a man, right? And so she's still getting, like she know to go cook and clean and do all that, but she's still getting her guidance or instruction from her husband, right? Because
Sometimes.
Because he's even telling her, like when there's an issue with the children, she let him know about it and he settled the issue. Am I right?
I think in some circumstances, for sure. It really depends on the relationship. Now, I'm married. I don't clean that much. I'm not really good at it. I often hurt myself when I clean. It's
you
like,
hurt yourself when you clean?
Yes.
What do you mean?
I'm a little klutzy. Like, I'll do like a little cleaning, but my husband's really good at cleaning the floors. Like, it's situation by situation. Oh, yeah.
So
he's
your
great at it.
husband clean?
He learned it in the military.
You have children?
Nope.
Oh.
We have animals.
You have animals?
Yes.
What the?
And they are messy. Yeah.
And so your husband clean and he cooks and all that kind of stuff?
I probably cook more often, but he cooks sometimes too. He makes amazing pancakes. Yeah.
That's amazing.
It is. I love it.
That's amazing. I've noticed in today's world that, and I hear it all the time, that women today don't make for good wives and mothers.
Oh.
And so, and it seemed to be around the clock. It seemed to be women who are educated. And so I tell men now, if you want a family, don't marry a woman that's educated because she does not make for a good wife or a good mother. And am I wrong? Or do you agree or disagree with that?
I think it's wonderful to marry an educated person if you're compatible with them. But what you're describing, so for example, if you are someone who wants to have a very traditional man goes to work, woman stays home relationship, and you date a woman who has her PhD in biology and she has a massive career and she's very busy and doesn't want kids, don't get married.
Right.
I think I think that educated women make incredible partners and wives and mothers.
But
And
they
I think
don't
you
want
can
to
do
stay
both.
home. They
Well,
don't want to stay home and be a mother. They want to be
mm,
equal. You know how women
yeah.
like to believe that they're equal to men. They
Yeah, we
always
do.
want to be equal to men. So
Yep.
they don't want to stay home and watch over the man's children because
Mm.
it doesn't, the thrill is not good enough, right?
Uh,
They want the thrill of being recognized, get trophies at work, and people say how
mm.
great you are. And I've heard women say, well, they don't get the same thrill when they raise children.
Ah.
What do you
You know,
think about
some
that?
women
And
don't.
that's why they don't make for good wives and
Ah,
mother.
interesting. Yeah, I think there are certainly people who feel that way. I think it varies so much, though. I know a lot of women who really prefer to like work part-time and also be home part-time. I know a couple I'm really close to, they both work from home and they split the childcare. And it works really great for them. So like, I think there are ways to work around that, but what you're really getting at is people's values, right? Their values, their priorities, and those are conversations to have before you get married, right? You don't want
Right,
to
absolutely.
marry someone and then realize like, oh,
Yeah.
no one wants to stay home. Well, someone's got to be with the kid or maybe you choose daycare, but if you're both against daycare and you're both going to be gone, you shouldn't really be having kids together, right? So it really comes down to knowing what you really want and need and also having those conversations.
Do you agree with me that a man that stays home and let his wife go to work is a weak man?
I don't.
You don't?
I
But
think
he
it's
become the
great.
woman.
Well, I think
A man that stay home and clean and
mm,
wash dishes and make meals and
yeah.
carry the baby in a pouch in front of him. That's a
Mhm.
weak man, right?
I don't think so.
But that's a woman man.
I don't see it that way.
Why not?
I see where that comes from though, because for so long, that's what so many people learned is women only had this option and men had this option. I think it's beautiful for a man to take care
Really?
of kids. Yeah.
But that's such a beta male.
That's okay.
Would you want a beta husband or alpha husband?
That's a good question. Is there a C option? I want a C, a blend.
There's no C.
Okay.
You're either beta or you're alpha.
Oh gosh. I think it's a really hard question to answer. When I think of beta, I think of being a little more cooperative. So maybe I would choose that. I definitely don't want a partner who is like commanding me around and makes all the rules and tells me what to do. My personality is not really good with that.
Really?
Yeah, you might have picked up on that.
So you prefer a weak man over a strong? You
I
prefer a weak
see-
man rather than a strong man?
I think there's strength in gentleness, and I think there's strength
Gentleness?
in
Why not?
yeah, I do.
Are you educated?
You mean did I like go to college? I went to
Right.
college. I studied psychology in college, and then I have a certification in sex education. I
So
did.
you have a degree.
I have certifications.
Oh my God.
Yep.
Are you a feminist?
Yes. Now, I have a feeling your definition of feminist might be different from mine. I'm not sure. How do you define
At
it?
this point, I don't have a definition.
Okay.
Yeah, but are you a
Yeah.
feminist?
I think I am. Yeah. Because I know some people are a little leery of the term because they think it's anti-men.
Right.
I'm not anti-men.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think men are fabulous.
But you believe you're equal to a man.
Yeah. I think we have all equal value. I think.
But that doesn't make sense.
It does to me.
Let me ask. So that you prefer a weak man, a beta male over an alpha male?
If it's between someone bossing me around and someone being cooperative, yes.
Really?
Yes.
And so would you consider your husband beta or alpha?
He would hate having a label. That I know about him.
But how do you really see him?
I see him as being awesome. I think he's
That means beta,
right?
right?
Yeah, he'd be more cooperative. Like if he had to be one of the two, he's a very kind, strong, caring, determined guy. Intelligent, funny, strong, yeah.
But beta.
Yeah, if we're looking at it
What
as cooperative. Yeah, but again, we're seeing the terms a little bit different. But I like having more options than like this extreme or this extreme. I think so much of life comes down to this like middle area. And I think getting comfortable with that is really healthy.